The car was produced for only 3 years, released 4677 copies. And how many copies have survived to this day? But we found, and we will show you. But as usual, a bit of history. Ford development. This car POBEDA M-72 began to be produced in 1955. Its victory on full drive. Well, what's interesting is that the M20 appeared as a project even before the start of World War II in 1938. New forms, new fashion. The global auto industry dreams not only of comfort, but also of speed and aerodynamics. Even if today we test the body, only the body in the wind tunnel. Air resistance is much better than many modern cars. The appearance of the new Soviet car was developed by the factory designer Valentin Brodsky. The concept was progressive. Flat sides, aerodynamic silhouette, load-bearing body. At that time it was bold. Later, it was the exterior invented by Brodsky that formed the basis of the new car. Of course, our artists were inspired by foreign cars. For example, Opel Captain, but there was no full copy. Another interesting fact is that POBEDA became the world's first car, for the mass consumer, with a pontoon body. What is this? The front and rear wings are united by a single line. Something like this. And the POBEDA was. Why was? It is still a very comfortable car. It's like in the office. What else do you need? Radio, clock, heater. I'm sitting in the back, like on the couch. And in front, too, a couch. The salon is completely trimmed with fabric and wood-painted metal. It looks rich but is inexpensive to produce. The driver has 5 control devices, 3 warning lights, sun visors, electric windshield wipers, ashtray and cigarette lighter. The seat is adjustable. The whole couch moves slightly forward and backward. The tunnel seems to have gotten smaller. There was a transfer case shift knob. On the right side, there are information plates in Russian. Hand of Fear. The inscription M-72 on the steering wheel. And everything else is as usual. And here the magic begins. The transformation of a comfortable car into an SUV. Of course, the main consumer of POBEDA was the party and the country's leadership. And of course, the first persons loved to go hunting in the forest. And it's not the status to ride in an uncomfortable car. Therefore, Nikita Sergeyevich Khrushchev, having come to power, asked the USSR Ministry of Mechanical Engineering to create a new comfortable off-road vehicle, and the ministry asked the GAZ plant. The experience of crossing different cars in the USSR has already been. First of all, carpets are beautiful, polyethylene on the doors, it's practical. The car, by the way, is almost exploited every day. Well, it is often exploited. So, remember, GAZ 6173 all-wheel drive. But Khrushchev wanted his own, not what Stalin did. And he justified himself with the noble idea that such a machine was needed by the chairman of the collective farm, for example. Let me also remind you that in the USSR by this time a simple reliable SUV GAZ 69 was already being produced. So it was decided to marry them, and not just to combine, but to make everything beautiful and practical. GAZ 69 frame. POBEDA is a load-bearing body. It would have been possible to take one and install it on another. But they did the right and more elegant thing. They integrated GAZ 69 into POBEDA. For understanding,
14 additional body reinforcements were added to the design. The floor became more powerful. The spars were welded and added rigidity.
They welded on the strengthening of the engine shield and made the door pillars and the roof stronger. And of course, the spar frame was reinforced. Yes, you heard right, there seems to be no frame here. But, in fact it is. All this eliminated POBEDA's innate tendency to inappropriate twisting of the body on bumps. As a result, the weight of the body increased by only 23 kilograms, and the rigidity increased by 50%, this is for torsion, and for bending by 30.
I take off my hat and open the trunk. Well, it's all the same here. Next, the suspension. Here it is spring-loaded, and on the M20 it is independent. How to install the front axle?
A subframe was specially made, and the axle was mounted as a flush. But, even here, changes were made. The wheel track was made narrower,
And also reinforced the car leaf spring with one sheet. Do you see the lever shock absorbers?
On no other car you will see shock absorbers so well. In front, a split axle with steering knuckles, inside of which hinges of equal angular velocities are hidden.
There are shock absorbers, lever hydraulic.
Behind the picture is similar. The axle is the same, but not as on the GAZ.
A 55th year novelty with semi-unloaded axle shafts.
In strength it can knead the dirt like the previous one, but it weighs less. Also the leaf springs have decreased, but in length have increased. But there is a stabilizer of transverse stability, and shock absorbers that I spoke about.
Drum brakes in a circle. The engine. Wait, do you see the decorative element with the letter M on it? It goes down, and there opens a hole,
in which the crooked starter is inserted. So, the GOATs was fitted with engines from the POBEDAs. Respectively, there were no questions with this. Here it is.
M-20.
It is a gasoline-carbureted inline four-cylinder lower valve with a volume of 2,123 cubic centimeters, with a maximum capacity of 55 horsepower at 3,600 revolutions per minute. The maximum torque is 125 Newton-meters at 2,000 to 2,200 revolutions per minute. But POBEDA has 52 horses. Yes, the compression ratio was changed, from 6:2 to 6.5, which made it possible to populate the engine with as many as 3 extra horses. There they are, gray with apples.
Joke. So, an additional oil cooler appeared, and the fan impeller should have been with 6 blades. It should have been. What a tricky thing. It's to pump the gasoline pump, not to reach out with your hand into the unknown, but pumped up. The oil can is native in its original place. But in general, everything is the same. Wow, car spark plugs are huge. In an ordinary POBEDA, the visibility is so-so, and here due to the height and the raised hood in front, I can't see anything, but the dimensions feel and shake like on waves.
And again, how can I explain to you how the four-wheel drive POBEDA accelerates? Briefly, no way. For you to understand, the feeling is as if the horse was forced to pull a concrete block. The horse does not want to, but there is no choice. Very reluctant. Very. There is practically no rolling, as well as seatbelts. If you imagine that it's the end of the 50s, yes, I'm driving a Cadillac. The fit is normal. The gearbox, without modifications, because they are the same. 3 gears. The second and third are synchronized. About the top speed is meaningless to say, will do M-56 if you are not weak in spirit, but the passport 50 miles per hour, acceleration to 62 is basically absent, the consumption of 66 to 20 liters, depending on the terrain, because the terrain is no problem for M-72, the clearance under all axles, it is written in a clever book, equal to 8.27 inches. You noticed the radiator grille, right? Not the POBEDA's vest, but the 3 bars. It's just that when it was tested, it turned out that with the conventional radiator grille, the engine overheats. In order not to produce 2 different chromes, for the radiator grille, they decided to install 3 bars on the usual POBEDA. The people called such POBEDAs the 3rd series, officially GAZ M-20V. It were produced from 1955 to 1958. M-72 also from 55th to 58th. Coincidence? I don't think so. Because of the all-wheel drive, the car lost maneuverability. A 2-ton barge does not really like sharp turns, and the radius is 6.5 yards. But, it's quieter here than in the GOAT, not because the interior is wrapped up or the roof is iron. Transfer case is the same as for GAZ 66, but if you grind the gears correctly and assemble it with the right hands, it becomes quieter. That's the kind of quiet ones they used to put on the M-72. Although, in my opinion, everything howls the same way. But let's put it down to age. The car was in demand in those years. It could even be purchased for private use. But there were several constraining factors. The first is the lack of sufficient funds from the population, and the second is the lack of a sufficient number of cars on sale. And even the authorities were monitoring non-labor incomes, but not today. Small-scale production did not allow the M-72 to become the first, truly mass-produced, four-wheel drive, comfortable car, called SUV. But this car has shown us which direction we need to move and develop. I don't know if we went that direction, but the hunt continues.